Welcome to Sleep Easy, where we invite you to unwind and release the weight of the day. I'm so grateful you've chosen to spend this peaceful moment with us. Have you ever wondered what happens when you close your eyes and drift into sleep? What if, within the realm of your dreams, there's a world waiting for you, full of adventures and wisdom? Tonight's story, Dreamwalker, A Journey Through the Sleeping Realms, will take you on just such a journey through the mystical and unknown realms that exist beyond our waking minds. In this story, you will follow Elara, a dreamwalker who embarks on a path through magical landscapes, encounters strange and wise guides, and faces the trials of both light and darkness within herself. As she journeys through these realms, she learns to embrace her true self and unlock the secrets of the sleep world, bringing newfound wisdom and peace into her waking life. Now, as you settle into your bed, take a slow, deep breath. Let the weight of your body relax into the surface beneath you. With each breath, feel your muscles soften and your mind quiet. Let go of the day and allow yourself to drift into the peaceful world of dreams, ready to follow Elara's journey through the sleeping realms. The night began softly, with clouds moving slowly across a pale silver moon. In her quiet cottage tucked among the pine trees, Elara stood at the window, brushing her long chestnut hair and listening to the breeze. It was one of those nights where everything felt slightly hushed, like the world was waiting for something to begin. Outside, the wind whispered in the branches, not with force, but with intention. It carried something more than air. Something old. Something kind. Elara closed her eyes and breathed in the stillness. Her room was dim and calm, lit only by a small lantern on the table beside her bed. Her cat, Milo, already curled in a purring ball, barely stirred as she pulled the soft quilt over her legs. But tonight was different. There, beneath her pillow, something waited. When she slipped her hand underneath, her fingers brushed cold metal, a small, delicate silver key, unlike anything she'd ever seen. Attached was a slip of parchment with words written in ink that shimmered like moonlight. To the Dreamwalker. Your true journey begins tonight. Elara sat up, heart beating slowly but deeply. She wasn't afraid. Instead, she felt a stillness inside, like the space between two thoughts. A door was opening, somewhere she could not yet see. She lay back, holding the key gently in her palm. As her eyes closed and her breath slowed, she felt the wind change. It no longer came from outside the cottage walls. It came from within. A breeze, soft and scented like wild lavender, flowed through her mind, curling behind her eyes, guiding her into the space between waking and dreaming. And when she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in her bed. She stood barefoot on soft grass that glowed with gentle blue light. The sky above was filled with slow-moving stars, and the trees around her whispered secrets and languages she didn't quite understand, but somehow felt. This was the threshold, the beginning of the dream realms. A place that belonged to no time, no place, and yet felt like home. The wind swirled around her, and with it came a voice, neither male nor female, old nor young. It sounded like laughter carried on wind chimes. "Welcome, Elara," it said. "You've heard the whisper. You are ready." She turned to find a figure approaching from the mist, a small, luminous creature with moth-like wings and large, thoughtful eyes. In their hands, they held a lantern that flickered like starlight. "I'm Nim," the creature said softly. "And you are a dreamwalker." The words felt both foreign and familiar. "What does that mean?" Elara asked, her voice barely louder than the breeze. "It means," Nim said gently, "you can walk between dreams, not only your own, but those of others. You are a traveler of the sleeping world. And there is so much to see." The wind stirred again, wrapping around Elara like a comforting shawl. It carried scents of jasmine, rain, and warm bread, memories, perhaps, of lives and dreams she hadn't visited yet. Nim extended a hand. "Would you like to begin?" Elara nodded. And with that, the wind rose, not fierce, but steady. It lifted the edges of the grass, turned the stars slightly overhead, and carried Elara gently forward into a path made of silver light. Behind her, the cottage and the waking world faded like morning mist. Ahead, the dream realms waited. And the wind whispered once more, "This is only the beginning." The path of silver light beneath Elara's feet gradually narrowed, becoming soft beneath her soles, like stepping on the quiet hush of snowfall. Around her, the dreamscape changed. The trees faded into mist. The wind slowed until it was no longer air, but silence. Above her, stars blinked slower and dimmer, as if even they had grown drowsy. And just ahead, bathed in moonlight, something shimmered into view. It was a staircase, suspended in the air. Not made of stone, nor of wood, but of deep violet velvet, rich and warm in color, folding softly like fabric with each gentle rise. It floated with no visible end, winding upward into a dreamy spiral through clouds tinted with silver and indigo. Elara stopped at the first step. "Nim?" she asked quietly, her voice almost afraid to ripple the stillness. "I'm here," came Nim's gentle voice, echoing from behind her. The little moth-winged guide hovered just above her shoulder, lantern glowing like a candle in the fog. "Where does it lead?" Elara whispered. Nim tilted their head. "Upward. Inward. Both, in a way. The velvet staircase is the first ascent. Each step holds a memory. Each one a part of you." Elara looked down at the key still resting in her palm. As if responding to the moment, it glowed softly, then dissolved into a quiet mist that floated up the staircase ahead. She took the first step. The velvet gave way gently beneath her foot, and with it came a sudden, warm scent, cinnamon and honey. A childhood memory stirred, her grandmother's kitchen, her small hands shaping cookie dough, soft laughter in the background. Another step. A flicker of sound, her father's old record player, spinning lullabies on rainy afternoons. Another, her own voice as a girl, singing to the wind while walking home from school. Step by step, she climbed, and with each rise, her heart felt lighter, not because it was forgetting, but because it was remembering. Nim floated beside her. Dreams are not just made of imagination, they said. They are built from what we carry, quietly and deeply, memories that rest beneath the surface of waking life. Elara paused for a moment. Is that why the steps feel so familiar? Nim nodded, the lantern flickering gently. Yes. This staircase belongs to you, and to everyone. It simply takes shape in the way you need it most. As she climbed higher, the stars grew larger, closer. They pulsed like slow heartbeats. Some were far off, a bell chimed, not loudly, but with a deep, soothing tone that vibrated through the clouds. Then suddenly, Elara reached a small landing. At its center stood a mirror, oval-shaped, framed in vines of silver ivy. It reflected not her face, but 1,000 versions of her, child, teen, adult, laughing, crying, resting, dancing. All were real. All were hers. She stepped closer. One version of her, eyes bright with curiosity, hair tangled by wind, smiled from the reflection. You've always been walking, the reflection said softly. Now you know where. Then, like mist warmed by morning sun, the image faded. Elara stood quietly, her hands still tingling from the touch of memory. Nim hovered close, watching her with kind eyes. Are you ready for the next dream? They asked. Elara looked upward. The velvet staircase curved once more into the clouds, beckoning her toward the unknown. She smiled gently. Yes, she said. I think I am. And so, with steady breath and heart open like a soft-lit window, she began to climb again, one step at a time, toward the next dream that waited beyond the mist. As Elara stepped off the last velvet stair, the world around her softened once again. The air shimmered with pale blue light, and a low, melodic hum curled through the mist like a distant lullaby. Ahead, a narrow path led into a forest, not dark or dense, but filled with tall, slender trees whose trunks shimmered like silver birch, and whose leaves chimed gently when touched by the wind. It was not silence that filled the air here, but a quiet music, ever-changing, always fading. This is the forest of forgotten songs, Nim whispered beside her. Their wings beat slowly, as if even they were hushed by the place. Every melody that's been lost to time still echoes here, songs never finished, lullabies never passed on, tunes hummed once and forgotten. Elara stepped into the forest, her bare feet brushing the moss, which glowed softly beneath her steps. The trees around her swayed gently, releasing faint notes into the air, soft flutes, gentle harps, low, rich hums. Each sound drifted past her like petals in the wind. She paused beneath one of the trees, drawn by a familiar tune, just a few notes, rising and falling like a memory tugging on her heart. I've heard this before, she murmured. Long ago. Nim drifted down and touched the trunk with their small, glowing fingers. It's yours, they said simply. Something you sang as a child. A tune with no words. It stayed here when you forgot it. Elara felt tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of remembering. The melody grew clearer, and suddenly, she was 7 years old again, lying on the grass outside her childhood home, humming to the clouds. And the forest listened. More trees began to sing, softly at first, then gently rising in harmony. Each tree offered a fragment of a forgotten song, an unfinished lullaby a mother once sang, a melody whistled by someone long gone, a piano tune abandoned mid-verse. All of them blended into a single sound, a gentle, endless cradle song. I didn't know dreams could hold music, Elara whispered. They do, Nim said. Dreams remember everything, even what we forget. Especially what we forget. As they walked deeper into the forest, Elara noticed that some trees had little glowing lights resting in their branches, tiny orbs that pulsed like sleeping heartbeats. What are those? She asked. Notes still waiting to be heard, Nim replied. Some songs aren't finished yet. Their final notes are waiting for someone to find them or write them. Elara paused beneath a tree with a single glowing orb. She reached out gently, and as her fingers brushed it, the light entered her chest, not sharply, but with warmth, like a memory finding its home. She heard a song, soft, wordless, comforting. It filled her whole being, and for a moment, she stood still, letting the music carry her. It was a song she hadn't known she'd been missing. Then, from deeper within the trees, a low, resonant tone echoed, a sound unlike the others. It was ancient, slow, and steady, like a drumbeat beneath the earth. Nim turned, their wings flickering. Something is awakening. Elara felt no fear. Only curiosity. Hand over her heart, the new song still warming her from within, she nodded. Let's follow it. And so, with music guiding their steps and forgotten melodies wrapping around them like a soft blanket, Elara and Nim moved deeper into the dream, into the forest's heart, where the oldest song still waited to be heard. The music of the forest faded behind them like the last note of a lullaby, and ahead, a new light emerged, a soft glow, round and pale, like moonlight trapped in glass. Elara and Nim stepped into a clearing where time felt slower, suspended. Overhead, the sky shimmered not with stars, but with quiet ripples of silver light, as if they stood beneath the surface of a still lake, looking up. In the center of the clearing stood a tall stone pedestal, moss-covered and ancient. Resting atop it was a lantern, unlike any Elara had seen. It glowed with a quiet, internal light, soft and blue, pulsing in time with something deeper than breath. What is it? She asked, stepping closer. Nim hovered near the lantern, wings gently stirring the air. It's called Luna's lantern, they said reverently. It holds a light made not of flame, but of memory. It's the light we see when we close our eyes and feel safe. The glow of a night light. The moon through a window. The warmth of being watched over. Elara reached out, and the lantern responded. Its glow brightened just slightly, as if recognizing her. She gently lifted it from the pedestal. It was surprisingly light, as if filled with air and dreams. At her touch, the clearing changed. Soft lights bloomed among the grass like fireflies awakening from sleep. The trees leaned inward, as if listening. And above, the silvery sky pulsed in gentle waves, echoing the rhythm of a calm heart. Nim's voice grew quieter. Each dreamwalker finds the lantern. It shows them the places they've been protected, even when they didn't know it. And it guides them toward the dreams that are hidden, the ones they're ready to remember. As Elara held the lantern, images flickered in its light, shadows of moments long buried in quiet corners of her heart. A rainy night when she was small, hiding beneath her blankets as thunder rolled, and a gentle hand touched her shoulder, her mother, singing softly until she fell asleep. A lonely evening in her teenage years, curled in her window seat, when the moonlight poured in like a silent companion. A recent morning she had forgotten, waking early, overwhelmed by the world, only to be comforted by the sound of Milo's purring warmth at her feet. Each image lingered like a whisper, then dissolved into light, joining the glow within the lantern. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks, not from sorrow, but from something gentler. She hadn't realized how many times she'd been held by light. "How does it know?" she asked quietly. "It doesn't need to know," Nim replied. "The light simply remembers what you've forgotten to feel." The wind stirred, and far ahead, a narrow path opened once more. At its end, Elara could just make out the glimmer of something vast and reflective. "A lake," she murmured. Nim nodded. "Yes. And beneath it, your next dream." Elara took a deep breath, holding Luna's lantern close. Its light cast a circle of comfort around her, softening the edges of the unknown. Together, they stepped forward, leaving the forest behind. And the lantern glowed steadily in her hands, like moonlight held in a dream. Elara stepped into a light that shimmered like dawn through curtains, her bare feet now brushing against something softer than grass, cool and feathery beneath her soles. The path behind her faded like mist on morning windows. Before her stretched a vast open space, suspended gently in the sky, where the ground itself was made of clouds, plush, thick, and ever-shifting, yet stable beneath her steps. They swirled in soft colors, pale lavender, peach, and honeyed gold, like the gentle palette of early morning. Above and around her, there were no trees, no stars, just drifting petals, hanging vines of silver mist, and glowing blooms that floated without roots, anchored only by the sky. "This," Nim whispered with quiet awe, "is the cloud garden. A place where dreams are planted, not from the mind, but from the heart." Elara took a slow step forward, her fingers grazing a blossom the size of her palm. It unfurled as she touched it, releasing a warm, delicate scent, like vanilla and sun-warmed linen. Inside the bloom was a tiny, flickering light. "A dream seed," Nim said, hovering closer. "Everyone plants one here at some point, even if they never remember doing it. Wishes that were never spoken. Hopes that floated off into the air. This garden keeps them alive, waiting for their time." Elara walked slowly, her lantern still glowing softly at her side, casting halos in the cloudy air. Around her, the flowers shimmered, some full and open, others closed tight like they were still waiting to bloom. She paused near one blossom that pulsed gently with light. "What happens when they open?" she asked. "They release the dream back into the world," Nim replied. "Sometimes in sleep. Sometimes in sudden inspiration. Sometimes in the quiet moments when we stop and wonder." Elara kneeled by the flower. Something about it felt familiar. Not in memory, but in feeling. A deep, quiet yearning she hadn't given voice to. As her hand brushed the petals, the flower bloomed fully. Inside, she saw a vision, not of a place, but a feeling, herself sitting by a window in a home not yet real, sunlight on her shoulders, a mug of tea in her hands, a notebook on her lap. Peaceful. Whole. "I didn't know I wished for that," she murmured. "You did," Nim said gently. "Even if you never said it aloud." Elara stood slowly, her heart filled with something like wonder. Farther ahead, she noticed a circle of clouds rising slightly, like a platform. At its center floated a tree, not of bark and leaves, but of light and vapor, with branches like ribbons and blossoms like tiny stars. "That's the heart of the garden," Nim said softly. "The oldest dreams rest there. Ones planted by many, together. Dreams of kindness, of healing, of finding our way." Elara approached the tree. As she neared, her lantern began to hum, not audibly, but through sensation, like warmth spreading from the center of her chest. She reached out, and a single glowing blossom fell into her palm. It was weightless, but felt full of meaning. "You've been entrusted with a dream," Nim said. "Something old. Something hopeful. It will stay with you." Elara watched as the blossom dissolved into a small trail of golden mist and vanished into the lantern's light. She smiled. Not with excitement, but with peace. "I'll carry it carefully," she said. The wind shifted, and a new path appeared, formed of clouds swirling into a gentle staircase, leading upward once more. Elara looked up. The sky above was warming, turning from twilight to a soft pink glow. "It's time," Nim said, settling lightly on her shoulder. Elara took a deep breath, then stepped onto the cloud stair, carrying Luna's lantern in one hand and the quiet echo of the dream in her heart. And above them, the blossoms of the cloud garden swayed slowly in the wind, waiting for the next dream to bloom. The cloud stairway gently faded behind Elara as her foot touched new ground, solid and cool, echoing faintly beneath her steps. The air shifted once again, thicker now, tinged with a scent like damp stone and ancient earth. A soft fog swirled low across the ground, and hills rolled before her like sleeping giants. These were the hollow hills, quiet and vast. Their gentle slopes curved and dipped like waves frozen in time, each one hollow within, like a bell waiting to ring. Nim hovered beside her, quieter than usual, their wings barely stirring the mist. "These hills carry echoes," they said softly. "Not of sound, but of silence. They remember what was left unsaid." Elara clutched Luna's lantern a little closer. Its soft glow cut through the mist in warm ripples, illuminating small stones along the path, each inscribed with delicate, fading symbols. They felt like memories pressed into stone. As she walked deeper between the hills, the silence seemed to grow richer, not empty, but full, like being in a cathedral where even the smallest breath meant something. Then came the first echo. Not a voice. Not even words. Just a feeling, brushing her like a breeze, a moment when she had wished to say something, but hadn't. She paused, and the fog thickened around her, curling like a curtain. In the hush, she saw a vision rise from the mist. She was younger, sitting beside her father on the front steps during a twilight thunderstorm, the rain tapping the roof. She'd wanted to ask if he was ever afraid of growing old. The question had filled her chest like a stone. But she hadn't spoken. Just sat in silence, watching lightning flicker on the horizon. The vision faded. But the feeling stayed, soft, not painful. A hollow filled. "These echoes don't haunt," Nim said gently. "They remind of what still lives inside, of words that can still be spoken in new ways." As they continued, the hills began to sing, not with music, but with harmonies of memory. Some sweet, some bittersweet, some too quiet to name. Elara touched the stone walls of one hill's entrance, and it opened with a sigh, revealing a smooth tunnel lit by pulsing veins of glowing crystal. Inside, the echoes multiplied. She passed moments she hadn't remembered in years. The first time she let go of someone she loved. A poem she wrote and never shared. The silence after an argument, when an apology almost left her lips. Each echo stirred gently and faded, leaving a sense of softness rather than regret. In the heart of the largest hill, Elara found a wide, open chamber. The lantern's light reflected in thousands of tiny crystal droplets hanging from the ceiling, making it look like the stars had gathered underground. At the chamber's center stood a pool, still, clear, and shallow. As she approached, the water shimmered, then rippled, not from her steps, but from something within. She looked down and saw not her reflection, but herself as a child, eyes wide with wonder, hands pressed against glass, heart full of stories and questions. That version of her looked up and smiled. Elara knelt and touched the water gently. A wave of quiet warmth passed through her, and the image slowly dissolved into light. When she stood again, Nim was waiting near the tunnel's exit, their voice calm. "Every echo you heard can become a song, Elara. You just have to decide when to sing." As they stepped out of the hill, the mist began to lift. Dawn-like light spread across the sky. The hills no longer looked hollow, but whole. Elara breathed deeply, feeling something shift inside her, not lost, not broken, but opened. A new path stretched ahead, where the ground sparkled faintly with stardust and a distant breeze carried the sound of turning pages. Nim pointed with one delicate wing. "Next comes the library." Elara nodded, stepping forward once more. And behind her, the hollow hills held their silence, not as absence, but as quiet promise. The path beneath Elara's feet slowly gave way to smooth stone and scattered moss. The air became cooler, tinged with moisture and the gentle scent of rain-soaked leaves. A soft sound reached her ears, steady, rhythmic, like a lullaby whispered by the earth itself. Ahead, between rows of weeping trees and mist-laced reeds, a river wound through the dreamscape. Its waters shimmered with hues of silver and sapphire, glowing softly under the ever-changing sky. "This," Nim said with reverence, "is the river that remembers. It doesn't just reflect what we see, it carries what we've lived." Elara stepped closer, watching the surface ripple as if it breathed. The current was calm, flowing at the pace of a heartbeat, unhurried and eternal. She knelt beside the bank, dipping her fingers into the cool water. As soon as she touched it, gentle images bloomed across the surface, memories not just of her life, but of feelings that had shaped her. The first time she heard her mother hum a lullaby, the warmth of an old friend's laugh, the quiet ache of missing someone who once felt near. The river didn't show things as they had happened. It showed how they had been felt. "It only reveals what the heart still carries," Nim murmured, hovering near. "Not to burden you, but to remind you of what matters." Elara slowly stood, her gaze following the river's path. A delicate boat drifted toward her, carved from pale driftwood, lined with soft moss, and glowing with the same light as Luna's lantern. Without hesitation, she stepped inside. The boat glided forward on its own, the current guiding her without force. As she drifted, the riverbanks came alive with visions, not as vivid as dreams, but more like feelings woven into light. A moment of courage, when she had spoken up for someone even as her voice trembled. A morning when she had watched the sunrise alone and felt deeply connected to the world. The quiet comfort of holding someone's hand during a storm. Some memories were bittersweet. One showed a goodbye she never wanted to say. Another, a letter she never sent. But the river held them gently, without judgment or regret. As the boat rounded a bend, the current slowed further. The river here was so still it reflected the sky perfectly, and the sky above had softened into the indigo of twilight. Then came a whisper, not a voice, but a feeling woven into words. "You are more than what you remember, but your memories are part of your light. Elara looked toward Nim, but they were silent, wings folded softly. She realized the river was speaking not aloud, but within, like a memory of something she had always known. Soon, the boat approached a small, crescent-shaped island in the center of the stream. A willow tree stood at its heart, its silver leaves trailing into the water. The boat stopped gently at the bank. Elara stepped off and approached the tree, where a single glowing droplet hung from a low branch. As she touched it, the droplet dissolved into a soft breeze, brushing against her cheek like a goodbye kiss from someone long gone. She closed her eyes. In that moment, she didn't feel lost. She didn't feel burdened. She felt whole, a self shaped by love, loss, laughter, silence. And still moving forward. The river accepted all of it, and still flowed. When she opened her eyes again, the boat was ready. She stepped back in, and it turned gently, carrying her toward a path lined with soft lanterns floating in the mist. The river began to narrow and slow as it neared the next dream realm. The glow of parchment and candlelight flickered in the distance. "The library is near now," Nim said at last. Elara nodded, the echo of the river's wisdom still rippling through her chest. And behind them, the river that remembers kept flowing, quiet, endless, kind. As the gentle boat from the river that remembers slowed to a stop, Elara stepped onto a cobblestone shore lined with golden moss and curling ivy. Ahead of her stood a quiet little town, sleeping beneath a sky of lavender dusk. A wooden sign creaked overhead as she passed beneath it. "Welcome to Stillville, where every second is measured with care." The streets were silent, but not in a lonely way. Lamps glowed warmly behind curtained windows. A breeze carried the faint scent of lavender and clock oil. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimed, not urgently, but like a heartbeat, steady and kind. Nim fluttered beside her, wings barely brushing the air. "Time moves differently here," they whispered. Not slower or faster, but more thoughtfully. At the town center stood a tall, winding building made of brass and timber. Gears turned silently along its spire. Tiny bird-shaped weather vanes ticked back and forth atop domes and chimneys. The front door was shaped like a clock face, its hands pointing to a time that didn't quite exist. Elara stepped inside. The interior was a wonderland of timepieces. Pocket watches floated midair, pendulums swung from unseen beams, and floor tiles ticked faintly underfoot. In the center of it all, hunched over a curved workbench, sat the clockmaker. He was old, not in years, but in presence. His coat was stitched from midnight velvet, speckled with stardust. Gears turned slowly where buttons should have been. His eyes shimmered like old moonlight. He looked up as Elara approached and smiled. "Ah," he said in a voice like rustling paper, another dreamer with questions. She nodded quietly. The clockmaker gestured to a wall of glowing hourglasses, each one suspended in air, turning themselves when needed. "These are not minutes and hours," he said. "They are moments. Each person has a constellation of them. Some fall quickly. Others take years to pass." He reached for one, small, shaped like a teardrop, and handed it to Elara. Inside the glass, she saw herself as a child, dancing barefoot in a sunlit garden, spinning with a ribbon, laughing freely. "You've carried this one for a long time," the clockmaker murmured. "It's part of your rhythm." Elara cradled it carefully, touched by its simple joy. Then he showed her another, taller, thinner, glowing faintly violet. This one moved slowly. Inside, a younger Elara sat alone at a desk, staring out a window as rain tapped the glass. That moment had stretched long, and she hadn't remembered why, until now. "She was waiting for someone," Elara whispered. "Yes," the clockmaker said gently. "And sometimes waiting becomes part of who we are." Nim landed on a gear beside them, quiet and still. The clockmaker turned back to his bench and retrieved a curious object, half watch, half compass. "This," he said, "is the timekeeper's lens. It doesn't control time. It reveals which moments still echo inside you, ones you may need to revisit or let go." He placed it in Elara's hands. "Use it when the path ahead feels unclear." Just then, the tower shook faintly, not from danger, but from the gentle chime of a giant hidden bell above. The hands on the front door's clock shifted slightly, pointing toward a new hour. "Your time here is measured not by clocks," the clockmaker said, "but by clarity. And I believe you've found a piece of it." As she turned to leave, Elara looked once more at the glowing hourglasses. Some were still, some turning, but all were beautiful. She stepped outside, into a Stillville that somehow felt brighter now. The streets shimmered faintly under her feet as she followed a winding road marked with soft, floating lights. At the edge of the town, the path led downward again, toward water that shimmered like glass. "The library lies beneath the lake," Nim said softly. Elara clutched the timekeeper's lens and moved forward, a new sense of calm blooming in her chest. And behind her, the clockmaker returned to his work, not to fix what was broken, but to honor what had passed. The lake was still as glass, mirroring the sky with such clarity that Elara felt she might fall upward if she stepped too quickly. Nim hovered at her side, a quiet companion against the hush of the dreamscape. "There," they whispered, pointing with a shimmer of wingtip. "The bridge only appears when you remember what you're walking toward." Elara stared into the water. At first, she saw only reflections, stars, clouds, her own wide eyes. But then, slowly, silver lines began to trace across the surface, threading starlight into structure. A delicate bridge formed before her, glowing faintly, suspended by nothing and connected to nowhere, yet calling her forward. It wasn't made of stone or wood or metal. It shimmered like woven light, translucent but solid beneath her feet. Every step upon it sang the softest hum, like the echo of a lullaby she once knew but had forgotten how to sing. As Elara crossed, stars above shifted in rhythm, as if guiding her with their gentle gleam. Below her, the lake held no depth, only a swirl of color and memory, fleeting visions of things that hadn't happened yet, but might. A conversation she hadn't had. A hand she hadn't yet held. A morning that had not arrived. The bridge responded to her thoughts, widening and curving slightly with her emotions. When she felt uncertain, it paused beneath her feet, pulsing gently as though waiting for her to find her breath. Nim flew ahead and perched on one of the delicate arches. The starlight bridge connects more than places, they said. It links your now to your not yet. Halfway across, the stars shifted again, and a figure appeared on the far side of the bridge. It was faint, not fully formed. A soft silhouette dressed in warmth and light, as if made from the same dreams that spun the bridge itself. Elara's breath caught. She somehow knew this figure. Not by name, but by feeling. A version of herself, older? Calmer? Perhaps wiser. The figure offered no words, only a quiet gaze full of compassion. Elara stepped closer, drawn not by answers, but by recognition. As she neared, a wave of understanding washed through her, not of what would happen, but of who she could become, if she kept following the thread of truth she had begun to reclaim. The figure gently extended their hand and placed something small and warm into Elara's palm, a single silver thread, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Elara understood. The thread was a promise, not of certainty, but of connection. A reminder that she was not wandering without purpose, even when the path ahead vanished into mist. She closed her fingers around it and looked up, but the figure was already fading, like mist returning to air. The bridge beneath her began to guide her forward again, its glow softening as it approached the far side. When she reached the end, the sky above was shifting. Twilight was deepening, tinged with violet and soft gold. The dreamscape ahead transformed into something vast and sacred, a library, silent and submerged in shimmering water, where books floated like jellyfish and memory hung in the air like fog. Nim landed beside her. Next is the library beneath the lake, they said. It remembers even what we've forgotten. Elara nodded, slipping the silver thread into the pocket beside Luna's lantern and the timekeeper's lens. Each small token a quiet anchor. Each step a soft unfolding. Behind her, the starlight bridge shimmered one last time, then dissolved into the darkened sky, its purpose fulfilled, its memory now a part of her. The air grew warmer as Elara stepped off the shimmering path, her feet sinking softly into the moss-lined ground. The lake, with its rippling, tranquil waters, was now behind her. Before her stretched a wide, open space, a sprawling bazaar lit by countless lanterns. The soft glow of hundreds of hanging lights cast a warm golden hue over the scene, and the air was filled with the scent of spices, sweet treats, and incense. "This is the night bazaar," Nim said, fluttering ahead, their wings catching the light like fragments of a starry sky. It only appears to those who are ready to discover things they didn't know they were searching for. Elara glanced around in wonder. Stalls stood in neat rows, draped in silks and colorful fabrics, with trinkets, jewels, and curious objects lining every counter. The marketplace bustled with dreamlike figures, some familiar, others strange, all moving with purpose but no rush. Their faces were gentle, their gestures calm. Each stall seemed to offer something different, mystical maps that shifted as you looked at them, delicate glass orbs that pulsed with light, strange instruments that hummed with the possibility of sound. There were books stacked high, their pages turning slowly by themselves, showing images of distant lands and hidden memories. One table was piled with folded letters tied with twine, each one sealed with wax that shimmered like moonlight. A soft bell tinkled as Elara walked through the aisles, her eyes drawn to the endless offerings. Each item seemed to whisper a secret, something familiar, something forgotten. The air here felt alive, charged with the energy of choices not yet made. Nim hovered beside her, their voice soft. The bazaar doesn't give, it offers, gently. You can only take what speaks to you. And sometimes, what speaks to you is not what you expected. Elara smiled, glancing around at the crowd, trying to decide where to begin. She wandered down one row, drawn by the sound of laughter and the sight of a stall piled high with shimmering feathers. The woman behind the counter was humming softly as she carefully sorted the plumes. Her smile was warm and knowing. "These are dreams you haven't yet dared to dream," the woman said, her voice lilting, like a song. "They're waiting for you to claim them." Elara hesitated, not quite sure what to say. But before she could respond, her gaze was pulled to a nearby stall, an old-fashioned mirror, framed in weathered wood, its surface cloudy and misted. "Ah," said the vendor, an elderly man with soft, wise eyes. "You might find something here you weren't expecting." He gestured for Elara to approach. As she stepped closer to the mirror, she felt a tug, something drawing her to the reflection, even though she couldn't see anything clearly yet. Slowly, the mist within the mirror began to clear, revealing a version of herself she hadn't known existed. She was standing in a sunlit field, surrounded by flowers, a child's laughter ringing in her ears. She was barefoot, carefree, and free from worry. Elara blinked, startled, as the reflection shifted once more. This time, it showed a scene from her past, a memory she had buried long ago, of her first journey into the unknown, when she had taken that first brave step into the world beyond her comfort zone. "What is this?" Elara whispered. "It's a vision of what's been, and what can still be," the vendor explained gently. "The bazaar offers glimpses, reflections of your journey. You're not here to buy or sell, only to see." Elara nodded slowly, understanding. As she stepped away from the mirror, she felt something stir within her, a quiet assurance. Perhaps it wasn't just about finding the answers, but allowing herself to see the path she was already walking. She continued her exploration of the bazaar, pausing at a stall where a delicate music box played a tune she recognized, though she couldn't place it. A compass in another stall seemed to spin wildly, but there was something comforting about its erratic dance. And then, a small book caught her eye, its pages blank but glowing faintly with potential. But just as she reached for the book, a soft voice interrupted her. "I see you've found something that calls to you," said a figure who appeared beside her. They were dressed in a flowing robe of deep purple, their face hidden behind a veil of silver threads. But remember, sometimes the best gift the bazaar gives is the ability to walk away. Elara looked at the figure, unsure. "Choose wisely," the figure continued, their voice a soft murmur. "What you take with you here will echo through your journey." Elara nodded, stepping back from the book and giving the stall a final glance. She was no longer sure if she needed any of the items she'd considered. Perhaps the greatest treasure of the night bazaar wasn't something tangible, but the quiet clarity it offered her. As she turned to leave, the warm, glowing lights of the bazaar slowly faded into the distance, and the sound of the crowd melted away. "Onward, then?" Nim asked gently, their wings fluttering. Elara smiled, feeling lighter than before. "Onward," she said. And as she walked away, the night bazaar began to vanish, its stalls dissolving into the soft glow of the twilight, leaving only the memory of its offerings and the quiet hum of possibility. The moon was high now, a silver crescent hanging delicately in the sky. Elara and Nim walked in silence, the soft hum of the dreamscape lapping at their senses like the sound of distant waves. There was a change in the air, a deep, calming energy that seemed to pull at the very fabric of the night. "The sleep whale," Nim whispered, as if the very mention of the creature required reverence. "It doesn't come often, but when it does, it carries secrets from the deep." Elara's heart fluttered at the words, for something about them stirred a deep yearning in her. "A whale? In a dream?" Nim nodded solemnly, their wings fluttering softly. "Yes. But not just any whale. This one doesn't swim in oceans. It swims in the dreams of those who are ready to sleep, to surrender to the night. It carries the knowledge of forgotten dreams, the ones you didn't know you needed to remember." They came to the edge of a vast sea of stars, a glowing, tranquil expanse that stretched out before them, quiet and endless. There was no shore in sight, only the soft, undulating rhythm of the stars as they shimmered and pulsed in time with an unseen tide. Suddenly, a ripple broke the surface of the starry sea, and from the depths emerged a creature, a whale, its body vast and gleaming like the night sky itself. Its skin shimmered with the constellations, each flick of its massive tail sending waves of stardust cascading outward. The sleep whale was ancient, its eyes deep and knowing. It moved slowly, as if navigating through both time and space. Its body seemed to stretch and fold with the vastness of the dream world, its breath the softest sound, like a lullaby sung by the universe itself. Elara's breath caught in her throat, but she felt no fear, only awe, and an overwhelming sense of peace. This was no ordinary creature. The whale seemed to embody something timeless, something beyond the reach of everyday life. It was a dream made flesh, a bridge between the conscious world and the realm of sleep. The whale's great eyes met Elara's, and a voice, not spoken but felt, filled her mind. You have come seeking something you do not yet understand, child of the stars. What is it that you wish to know? Elara stood frozen, the enormity of the moment settling over her. What could she ask? What could she possibly seek from a creature that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe within its vast, tranquil form? I don't know, she whispered softly. I only know that I am searching for something. The sleep whale tilted its head, its movements slow and deliberate. The stars above flickered as if listening, as if the very night held its breath. The search is as important as the finding, the whale responded, its voice deep and resonant, echoing in the space between Elara's thoughts. In the act of searching, you awaken memories, both of the past and the future. What you seek is not always what you find, but it will guide you nonetheless. Nim fluttered beside Elara, their wings casting soft glimmers in the dim light. It speaks in riddles, but it is always true. Elara nodded, the truth of those words sinking into her heart. What is the secret of the sleep whale? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as though speaking too loudly might shatter the delicate balance of the moment. The whale's eyes deepened, its gaze almost sorrowful. The secret is this: there are many kinds of dreams. Some are fleeting, some are endless. Some take you forward, others pull you back. But there is one dream that calls to every soul, a dream that brings you home. It is not always easy to find, but it is always there, beneath the surface of your thoughts, beneath the surface of your heart. The whale paused, as if gathering its strength. And when you find it, child of the stars, you will know. You will know that all the searching, all the longing, all the questions you asked were only steps toward this one moment of stillness. And when you are still, you will finally understand what it is you've been seeking all along. The sleep whale began to sink back into the sea of stars, its form slowly dissolving into the night. Elara reached out instinctively, but the creature was already fading, leaving only a ripple of stardust behind. The air was still once more, and the landscape of the dreamscape stretched out, quiet and serene. Nim flew close to Elara's ear. The sleep whale leaves us with only what we can carry. Its secret is not for words, but for understanding. Elara stood there for a long moment, her heart beating softly, as if the whale's words were still echoing in her chest. She felt different now, lighter somehow, as though she had learned something profound without truly knowing what it was. Slowly, she began to walk, the stars above now twinkling more brightly, as if guiding her forward. The world around her was vast, but she no longer felt lost. The journey was hers to continue, and she knew that each step was part of the dream she was meant to follow. The stars had dimmed as Elara walked deeper into the dreamscape, her feet light and sure on the soft ground. A gentle breeze whispered through the air, carrying with it the faint scent of jasmine and the feeling of an endless night. Ahead of her, a structure rose from the earth, its silhouette delicate and elegant against the moonlit sky, a temple, its walls adorned with intricate patterns of silver and sapphire. "This place," Nim said, fluttering beside her, their wings glowing softly. "It is where time and dreams converge. The mirror of many moons resides here." Elara's heart quickened. A mirror, but one unlike any she had encountered before. "What does it show?" Nim paused, as though considering the question carefully. "It shows the paths that could have been, the paths that still might be. It shows not only who you are but also who you could become, if you dare to look." Elara nodded, unsure if she was ready. She had already seen glimpses of things she hadn't understood in this world of dreams. What if the mirror of many moons showed her something too difficult to bear? They entered the temple, and the air grew cooler. The floors were made of polished stone, reflecting the soft glow of the moon above. At the center of the room stood the mirror, framed by elegant vines that twisted up from the base, adorned with glimmering gemstones that caught the light like stars. The surface of the mirror shimmered as though it were made not of glass, but of liquid light. Elara approached it slowly, her heart beating with a strange anticipation. She could see her reflection, but it was different somehow. The image in the mirror was not just her as she was now, but also other versions of herself, each one standing in a different part of her life, at different moments in time. One version of her was younger, a child sitting by a window, gazing out with wide eyes full of wonder. Another showed her older, walking down a path in the woods, her shoulders heavier with the weight of time. Yet another was surrounded by friends and laughter, a fleeting moment of pure joy. And then, there was a version of her standing at a crossroads, looking uncertain, as if faced with a decision that would change everything. Each reflection felt real, as though they were all parts of her life, parts that had been lived, parts that could be, parts that never had been. "Go ahead," Nim urged softly. "Look deeper. The mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't show everything at once. It shows what you need to see now, what you need to understand in this moment." Elara took a deep breath and stepped closer, her gaze focused on the central reflection of herself. Slowly, the image shifted, like the turning of a page in a book. She saw herself standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out over an expansive ocean that stretched beyond the horizon. In the distance, a ship waited, its sails full of wind. She was holding a key in her hand, the weight of it heavy. The reflection in the mirror smiled back at her gently, and then the image began to shift again. The sea faded, replaced by a dense forest, the trees towering above her. She was no longer alone. There were others with her now, people she didn't recognize, but somehow knew. They were all looking at her, waiting for her to make a choice. Her heart beat faster. What was the key? What was the ship? What path was she meant to take? "Elara," Nim said, their voice soft. The mirror does not show the future. It shows the potential paths, the choices you can make. The key you hold is a symbol of your power, your ability to choose your way. The mirror reveals not the end of your journey, but the journey itself, full of possibilities. Elara's reflection in the mirror shifted once more, and this time, the image was of her sitting alone, staring at a blank page. There was a deep sadness in her eyes, a quiet longing. It was a version of herself she hadn't seen before, a version she didn't want to be. She stepped back, shaken by the image. What does this mean? Why am I standing alone? Why is there so much uncertainty? Nim fluttered closer, their wings brushing against her cheek. This is what you fear, Elara. It is the fear of being lost, of not finding your place, of not making the right choices. But even this version of you, standing alone, uncertain, is still you. And the journey, with all its choices and challenges, will always lead you somewhere. Elara stared into the mirror again. The many versions of herself were still there, waiting. But now, they didn't seem so distant. They felt like parts of a whole, all connected by the same thread, the same journey. There is no wrong path, she whispered to herself, as much to calm her own heart as to understand the truth. There is only the path I choose. The mirror shimmered one last time, and the images faded, leaving only her reflection once more, standing in the temple, bathed in moonlight. The mirror had shown her possibilities, but it had also shown her strength, the strength to choose, to move forward, to create her own path. Elara took a deep breath and smiled softly. She understood now. The mirror had not been a guide, but a reminder. The future was not something to fear, but something to embrace. As she turned to leave the temple, Nim hovered beside her, their wings glowing brightly in the soft light. "Ready to continue?" they asked. Elara nodded, her heart lighter now. "Yes. Let's keep going." And as they walked away, the mirror of many moons faded behind them, its surface still and calm, as if holding all the dreams of the world in its silent depths. The moon had begun its descent, casting a faint, silver glow over the dreamscape as Elara continued her journey. The stars above had taken on a softer hue, their light no longer sharp but diffused, as though they were fading into a peaceful twilight. Nim flew beside her, their wings a soft shimmer in the darkened sky. "This place," Nim said, their voice barely above a whisper. "It is a place where shadows dwell, but not the kind that bring fear. These shadows are gentle. They soothe. They help you see what's hidden in the corners of your mind." Ahead, a massive structure loomed, its silhouette regal yet subdued in the dim light, a castle, but not like any Elara had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of mist and soft stone, the towers reaching into the sky like fingers of ancient trees, but there was no harshness to them. Instead, they gave off an air of calm, as though the very structure was alive with whispers of forgotten dreams. The gates of the castle stood wide open, inviting Elara in. She hesitated, a small knot forming in her chest. There was something about this place that felt different. It was as if the castle itself was waiting for her, yet she couldn't understand why. "It's safe," Nim said, sensing her unease. "Inside, you will find what has been hidden. Not just from the world, but from yourself. The shadows here do not hurt. They reveal the truth, no matter how difficult it may seem." Elara nodded slowly, steeling herself, and stepped forward. The moment she crossed the threshold, she felt a shift, an overwhelming sense of quiet enveloped her. The world seemed to blur for a moment, then sharpen, and she found herself in a grand hall with high, vaulted ceilings. The floors were made of smooth, black stone, polished to a mirror-like finish, and the walls were lined with tapestries that seemed to move on their own, their scenes unfolding like silent, eternal stories. In the center of the room stood a large mirror, unlike the one she had seen before. This one was framed in delicate silver, winding like vines, and its surface rippled with soft, ethereal light. Elara could sense that this mirror was different. It wasn't reflecting the physical world around her, but something deeper, something within. "You must look," Nim said gently, their voice low. "What you seek here is not the world outside, but the world within you. The mirror will show you what you need to understand about yourself." Elara felt a deep reluctance, a flutter of doubt in her chest. She had seen many things in the dreamscape, each one more puzzling than the last, but this felt different. This mirror seemed to promise answers, answers she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Taking a deep breath, Elara stepped closer to the mirror. Her reflection wavered at first, then solidified. But it wasn't the version of her she expected. This reflection was of someone older, wearier, with eyes full of quiet sorrow. She stood in a room, alone, surrounded by shadows. The room seemed to close in on her, as if the walls were shifting, becoming narrower with each passing second. "Elara," Nim whispered. "What you see here is a fear. A shadow of the future that you must confront." The reflection in the mirror moved, and Elara saw herself again, but this time, she was standing in front of a door, one that was partially open, but beyond it was a space of overwhelming darkness. The door was cracked, just enough to let the faintest sliver of light through, but Elara could feel the pull of the darkness beyond. It called to her, whispered to her that she was meant to walk through. But Elara didn't want to. She didn't want to face what lay beyond. The shadows were too strong, too consuming. She didn't know if she had the strength to face them. The reflection turned and looked at her, as though waiting for her decision. The eyes of her older self were filled with fear, yes, but also with a quiet resolve. The door wasn't the end, it was a beginning. The darkness wasn't meant to consume her, it was meant to be understood, to be embraced as a part of her journey. The reflection spoke, but the words were soft, almost like a breath. "You cannot avoid the shadows. They are a part of you. The darkness will always be there, but it doesn't have to define you. Elara's heart pounded in her chest as the mirror's image slowly began to fade, replaced by her own reflection once more. This time, she saw herself standing taller, her shoulders squared. The fear was still there, but it was no longer overwhelming. She was ready to face what lay ahead, even if she didn't know what it was yet. A soft, soothing voice echoed through the hall, like a distant song. The castle of gentle shadows does not banish fear, Elara. It helps you see it for what it is, a part of you. And in seeing it, you can find peace. As the mirror's image faded entirely, Elara felt the weight of her emotions lift. The fear was still there, yes, but it was no longer a burden she couldn't carry. She could walk forward now, knowing that shadows were not things to be feared, but things to be understood. They were a part of her journey, and by embracing them, she could continue on. Nim's wings fluttered gently, their presence comforting. You've taken the first step, Elara. The shadows will always be there, but now, you know you can face them. Elara nodded, feeling a quiet strength settle in her chest. The castle had shown her that it was okay to be afraid, that the shadows didn't have to hold her back. She had the power to move forward, to make peace with her fears. And with that understanding, she turned toward the next part of her journey, the soft shadows of the castle falling behind her as she stepped back into the dreamscape. The journey through the dreamscape had been long, and with each step, Elara felt both lighter and more aware of the vastness of this world. The moon above her seemed to hover in eternal twilight, casting its gentle light over the ever-changing landscape. As the wind whispered through the trees, the world around her began to shift once again. In the distance, a faint glow appeared, gradually becoming brighter until it was unmistakable, a towering structure standing tall against the night sky. Elara quickened her pace, her curiosity piqued. As she drew closer, the building revealed itself to be a library, its grand arches stretching toward the stars, and its walls lined with books that seemed to hum with an ancient energy. "This is the Library of Dreams," Nim whispered, their voice reverberating with reverence. "Here, all dreams are stored, all stories are kept. The knowledge of the dreamers, those who have come before you, resides within these walls." Elara felt a sense of awe as she approached the grand doors. The library seemed to pulse with life, as if the very air was thick with knowledge. She stepped inside, and the moment she did, the doors closed softly behind her. The air was cool, and the floor beneath her feet was made of smooth marble, its surface glowing faintly under the dim light. Rows upon rows of shelves stretched out in every direction, filled with books of every size and color. Some were ancient, their pages yellowed and brittle, while others appeared new, their spines still unbroken. The scent of parchment and ink filled the air, familiar and comforting. Yet, in the silence of the library, there was a sense of profound stillness, as though the knowledge contained within these walls held secrets too vast for any one person to comprehend. "You've come at last," a soft voice called from the shadows. Elara turned to see a figure standing at the far end of the library, bathed in the light of a single, glowing lantern. The figure was tall, draped in a cloak of midnight blue, with an air of mystery and wisdom. In their hands, they held a book that seemed to pulse with a quiet energy. "I am the dream librarian," the figure continued, their voice warm and inviting, yet filled with the weight of ages. "I guard the stories of the dreamers. All who seek knowledge within this place must first understand what they are truly searching for." Elara took a step forward, her heart racing. I don't know what I'm looking for. But I feel like I need to understand more about the dreams I've been having. Why am I here? What is the meaning of all this?" The dream librarian nodded, their expression calm. "All who enter the library of dreams seek something, whether it be answers, clarity, or the understanding of their own path. The books here hold the wisdom of those who have dreamed before you, and perhaps they can show you the way forward." Elara glanced around, feeling a sense of both wonder and uncertainty. "Where do I begin?" "That," the dream librarian said, "is a question only you can answer. Each book here holds a different truth. Some stories will speak to your heart, others will challenge your mind. But you must choose which one calls to you." Elara hesitated for a moment before stepping toward one of the shelves. Her fingers brushed against the spines of the books, feeling their cool surfaces beneath her touch. She could hear whispers, faint but unmistakable, rising from the books as though they were alive, beckoning her closer. Her eyes fell on a book with a golden spine, its cover etched with intricate designs that seemed to shift as she looked at them. She reached for it, feeling a pull in her chest, as though the book had chosen her. The dream librarian nodded approvingly. "That is the one." Elara opened the book carefully, and as she did, a wave of energy rushed over her. The words on the pages shimmered and twisted, forming into images and sounds. The library around her seemed to fade, and she found herself standing on the edge of a cliff, gazing out at an endless sea of stars. She was no longer alone. There were figures around her, shadowy and indistinct at first, but then they began to take shape. Faces, familiar and unknown, all looking toward her, waiting for her to speak. "This is a dream," Elara whispered, her voice shaking. "But why am I here? Who are they?" "They are parts of you," the dream librarian's voice echoed, though they were no longer in the scene. "They are the pieces of your soul, scattered across time and space. The dream is not just a place, Elara. It is a reflection of your inner world, your deepest desires and fears." Elara's gaze moved from the figures to the vast ocean of stars before her. She felt the weight of their gazes, the unspoken questions. The dream was showing her something, but what? Was it a warning? A memory? A hope? The book in her hands pulsed again, and the scene shifted. She was no longer standing on the cliff. Instead, she was walking down a long path, lined with trees that reached toward the sky like silent sentinels. In the distance, she saw a figure standing by a river, waiting for her. "Who is that?" Elara asked, her voice trembling. "That is the version of you that you must find," the dream librarian replied. "The path you take in the dream will reveal the pieces of your soul that need to be reconciled. Only by understanding all the parts of yourself can you move forward on your journey." As Elara stepped closer to the figure by the river, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. The journey was not about finding one singular truth, but about understanding the many truths that made her who she was. The book's pages turned on their own, guiding her through the dream. When Elara closed the book, she felt different. The world around her had shifted, and yet, she knew the answers she sought would not come all at once. The dream was a puzzle, one that only she could solve. The dream librarian smiled softly. "You have seen what you needed to see, Elara. But the journey is not yet over. The books will always be here, waiting for you when you need them." Elara nodded, feeling both enlightened and uncertain. She had gained insight, but there was still so much more to discover. With a deep breath, she placed the book back on the shelf. "Thank you," she said quietly, turning to leave the library. As she walked away, the library faded behind her, leaving only the stars and the dreamscape. But Elara knew now that she had more than just questions. She had the tools to find the answers, and that was the first step toward understanding her path. The dreamscape seemed to shift again, as though the very air hummed with a new energy. Elara had barely taken a step when a soft, melodious sound began to fill the air around her. It was a sound unlike anything she had ever heard, delicate, haunting, and yet deeply familiar. The music seemed to rise from the ground itself, flowing through the trees, curling around her like a whisper. "Do you hear that?" Nim asked, their voice barely audible, as though they too were caught in the melody. Elara nodded, her eyes closing for a moment, allowing the music to wash over her. It was as if the very notes were woven into the fabric of the dream itself, their rhythm entwining with her thoughts, pulling her forward. There was no source she could see, no instrument or singer. The music seemed to be alive, moving through the very landscape, guiding her. As Elara ventured deeper into the dreamscape, she felt as though the music was calling her. It led her toward a distant hill, its peak bathed in the soft light of the moon. The melody rose in volume as she approached, filling her chest with a strange mixture of excitement and longing. At the top of the hill, she saw a figure standing alone. The figure was draped in a flowing gown that seemed to shimmer with the same moonlight, their hair cascading in soft waves down their back. The figure was holding a flute, their fingers moving gracefully over it as they played the haunting melody. The music was coming from them. "Who are you?" Elara asked, her voice almost lost in the song. The figure stopped playing, their gaze meeting Elara's with an expression that was both serene and knowing. "I am Midnight," they said, their voices soft and melodic as the music itself. "I am the keeper of the night's songs, the melody that weaves through the dreams of those who wander the dark." You have come to hear it, haven't you? Elara nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the question pressing against her chest. There was something about the figure that felt familiar, as if they were a part of her, something she had known all along but had forgotten. The music, Elara began, her voice barely a whisper. It's beautiful, but why do I feel like I've heard it before? Midnight smiled gently, their eyes shimmering in the moonlight. You have heard it in your dreams, Elara. This melody has been with you from the very beginning. It is the song of your heart, the rhythm of your soul. Every dream you've ever had, every journey you've taken in this world, has been guided by this song. But you must learn to listen to it, to understand its meaning. Elara stepped closer, her heart racing with a mixture of awe and confusion. What does it mean? Why is it so familiar? The song is your guide, Midnight explained, lowering the flute and looking at Elara with deep, knowing eyes. It is the voice of your inner self, the part of you that knows the truth of your path. The melody you hear is not just the music of the dreamscape, it is the sound of your soul's journey, calling you forward. The music swirled around Elara once more, a gentle, yet insistent presence that seemed to reach into the very depths of her being. She closed her eyes, letting the melody envelop her, letting it speak to her in a way that words never could. She began to see flashes of memories, images of moments from her past, moments she hadn't thought of in years. Her childhood home, the laughter of her family, the warmth of a friendship she had long forgotten. These memories, scattered and fragmented, began to weave together into a tapestry, each note of the melody pulling them into focus. The song was not just a sound, it was a bridge to her past, to the parts of herself that she had lost or left behind. She had always been searching for something, something that had felt just out of reach. And now, she realized, it had always been within her, in the quiet rhythms of her heart. You must follow the music, Midnight said, their voice soft yet firm. The melody will lead you where you need to go. It will show you the way to your true self. But you must trust it, Elara. Trust the song of your heart. Elara felt a wave of understanding wash over her, a sudden clarity she hadn't known she needed. The music wasn't just a guide, it was a part of her. The melody was the sound of her soul calling her home, showing her the path she was meant to follow. As the music swelled, Elara took a deep breath, feeling her feet move with the rhythm of the song. The world around her seemed to shift once more, as if the dreamscape itself was responding to the melody. The ground beneath her feet became soft, like moss, and the trees around her began to sway in time with the music. The journey ahead will not be easy, Midnight said, their voice soft but filled with conviction. But the melody will always be with you. It will be your anchor in the darkest moments, your guide when you are lost. And when you are ready, it will lead you to the answers you seek. Elara nodded, her heart filled with both wonder and determination. She had found something important, something that would help her find her way through the dreamscape and beyond. The melody of the night was not just a song, it was a key, unlocking the deepest parts of her soul, guiding her through the labyrinth of her journey. With a final glance at midnight, Elara turned and walked into the night, the melody of the song echoing in her heart. The music would lead her, as it always had, and with each step, she felt more and more like she was finally beginning to understand the truth of her path. The melody of Midnight's song lingered in Elara's mind as she continued her journey. The night was still, and the dreamscape seemed to hum with the soft rhythms of the world, but there was a sense of movement in the air, a subtle shifting beneath her feet. Elara had always been aware of time, but here, in the dreamscape, it was something different, something more fluid, more mysterious. She walked through a dense fog that seemed to rise from the ground, thick and silvery. Each step she took was met with the sensation that she was leaving something behind, something that was slipping away, almost like a memory fading into the past. And then, suddenly, the mist parted, and Elara found herself standing on the edge of a vast, uncharted sea. The water was dark and glassy, reflecting the pale glow of the moon. In the distance, a silhouette appeared, a small island, rising out of the water like a forgotten piece of the world. Without thinking, Elara began to move toward the island, drawn by a force she couldn't explain. The water was cool as she waded through it, each step sending ripples across the surface. She didn't know why she felt compelled to go there, but the pull was undeniable. She had to see what awaited her. The island was small, its shores lined with smooth stones and patches of grass that seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. As Elara stepped onto the shore, she felt a strange shift in the air, as though time itself had frozen for a moment. The land was eerily still, as if it had been untouched for centuries. There were no sounds, no birds, no wind, no rustle of leaves. Just silence. She walked deeper into the island, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. The air around her felt thick, heavy with the weight of something ancient, something lost. As she ventured further, she came upon a clearing where a massive stone archway stood at the center, its surface covered in intricate carvings of clocks, hourglasses, and winding gears. This was no ordinary archway. It was as if the island itself was a place where time had been trapped, suspended in midair. Elara, a voice called, soft and distant, like a whisper from the past. She turned to see a figure standing at the base of the archway. The figure was draped in a flowing cloak, their face obscured by shadow, but Elara could sense the presence of wisdom and age in them. "Who are you?" Elara asked, stepping closer, her heart beating faster. The figure didn't respond right away. Instead, they stepped forward, raising their hand to reveal a small, golden pocket watch, its surface gleaming in the moonlight. The hands of the watch were still, frozen at midnight. "This is the island of lost time," the figure said finally, their voice low and filled with sorrow. "A place where moments are forgotten, where time slips away unnoticed. The watch I hold was once a key to remembering, but now it is broken, like so many others." Elara's gaze fell to the watch, feeling a strange connection to it. "Lost time?" But how can time be lost? The figure looked at her with eyes that seemed to carry the weight of ages. Time is not a simple thing, Elara. It is a thread that weaves through all lives, all journeys. But not all moments are remembered. Some slip away unnoticed, discarded, or forgotten. The time here is lost, not in the sense that it disappears, but in the sense that it is forgotten, left behind by those who have come before. Elara felt a chill run down her spine as she took a step closer. Why am I here? The figure looked at her for a long moment, as if considering her question carefully. You have been searching for something, haven't you? Answers. Clarity. The meaning of your journey. But there is a lesson here, Elara. The past can never be truly forgotten. It lingers in the spaces between moments, in the corners of your mind. It shapes who you are, whether you remember it or not. Elara's thoughts spun as she tried to understand the figure's words. So, the time that's been lost, can it be found again? The figure nodded slowly, their gaze turning toward the watch in their hands. Some moments can be reclaimed. Others, like the watch, are broken beyond repair. But time itself, time is a cycle. It repeats. It never truly ends. Elara took a deep breath, letting the weight of the figure's words sink in. She had always felt as though she was chasing something elusive that had slipped through her fingers time and time again. But now, standing on the island of lost time, she began to understand that perhaps the answers she sought were not something to be found in the future, but something to be understood in the present and in the past. The figure handed her the broken watch. This is yours now. The broken pieces are a part of your story. You must learn to see them, to embrace the time that has passed, and the moments you have yet to experience. Time does not wait for anyone, but it can be understood. Elara held the watch in her hands, feeling the weight of it. It was heavy, but not in a burdensome way, more like a reminder. She didn't need to fix the watch, but she needed to understand it, to recognize that the moments she had lost or forgotten were still a part of her, shaping the path she would take. Thank you, Elara said softly, looking up at the figure. I think I understand now. The figure smiled, their face still hidden in shadow. Remember, Elara, time is not something you can control. It flows like the river, moving forward and carrying you along. But if you learn to understand it, you can find your way, even in the moments you have lost. With that, the figure faded into the mist, and the island around her seemed to shift, like the final echo of a forgotten dream. Elara was left standing alone, the sound of the sea gently lapping at the shore, the watch still in her hands. The moon above shone brightly, casting its soft light on the island, as if to remind her that time, though fleeting, was a part of her story, forever. And with that thought, Elara turned and began her journey once more, carrying the weight of the lost moments and the lessons she had learned. Elara stood on the edge of the island, feeling the weight of the broken watch in her hand. The journey she had undertaken had been full of revelations, each one uncovering another layer of the dreamscape she had yet to fully understand. The echoes of time still swirled around her, but there was a stillness now, a quiet that pressed against her chest like an unspoken truth. As she stepped away from the island, the sea parted before her, revealing a narrow, winding path that led deeper into the fog. The air was thick with a damp, mournful scent, as if the very earth itself was holding its breath. She didn't know why, but the path beckoned her forward, the strange tug in her heart growing stronger with each step. She walked for what felt like hours, the fog wrapping around her like a shroud. It was the kind of fog that muffled sound, that seemed to erase all the edges of the world, leaving her in a vast emptiness, where time and space felt distorted. And then, just as she began to feel a sense of unease creeping in, the fog parted once again, revealing a vast, darkened sanctuary. At the heart of this sanctuary stood a grand archway, wrought in ancient stone, its surface covered with carvings that seemed to shift as she gazed at them. The air here was heavy, thick with an unspoken sorrow that clung to the walls like cobwebs. A low, constant sound filled the space, a sound that could almost be mistaken for wind, but it wasn't. It was the sound of sighs. Elara stepped forward, her heart beating faster as she entered the sanctuary. The sighs seemed to come from all around her, a collective, aching breath from the very stones themselves. Each sigh felt like a memory, a story of something lost, of pain, regret, and longing that had woven itself into the fabric of this place. She could feel the sorrow in the air, a presence that tugged at the deepest parts of her soul. "This is the sanctuary of sighs," a voice whispered from the shadows. Elara turned, her eyes searching for the source of the voice. A figure emerged from the gloom, a woman draped in flowing robes of silver and shadow. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and deep as if they carried the weight of countless years. She moved with a grace that was both ethereal and mournful, as if she, too, were part of the sanctuary itself. "Who are you?" Elara asked, her voice barely a whisper as she took a step forward. "I am the keeper of sighs," the woman replied, her voice soft yet filled with an ancient sadness. "This place holds the grief and loss of all those who have come before you, those who have carried their pain with them, never able to release it. I am here to listen, to hold the memories of the forgotten, the broken." Elara felt the weight of the words settle over her, and for the first time, she understood the true meaning of this place. The sighs were not just sounds, they were the echoes of lives lived, of stories unfinished, of hearts too heavy to heal. They were the voices of those who had never let go of their pain. "Why am I here?" Elara asked again, her voice trembling. "What is this place?" "This is a sanctuary for the lost," the keeper said, her gaze steady and knowing. "It is a place where the sorrow of the world gathers. It is a place for those who cannot let go of their grief, who are bound by the past and cannot move forward. You, Elara, have come to face your own sorrow, to confront the things that have been holding you back." Elara felt a shiver run down her spine. She had been running from something, an ache she couldn't quite place, a sense of loss that had always lingered just beyond her reach. But now, standing in the heart of the sanctuary, she knew that she could no longer escape it. The sighs around her seemed to press in on her, the weight of unspoken words and unhealed wounds growing heavier with each passing moment. The keeper stepped closer, her presence overwhelming in its quiet power. "You have been carrying your own sorrow, Elara. It is time to face it. The sighs you hear, they are yours as much as they are the sighs of others. Until you release your grief, you will never be able to truly move forward." Elara's chest tightened as she took a deep breath. She had always avoided looking too closely at her own pain, always distracted herself with the journey, with the quest for answers. But now, in the stillness of this sanctuary, the truth was undeniable. She had been running from her own sorrow. "I don't know how to let go," Elara whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to release what I've been carrying." The keeper's eyes softened. "It is not about forgetting, Elara. It is about accepting. Acknowledge the pain, the loss, and then allow it to pass through you. Let it move on, so that you can move forward." Elara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her grief settle around her like a cloak. The sighs of the sanctuary filled her mind, each one like a ripple in the calm waters of her soul. She saw flashes of moments from her past, losses she had never truly mourned, wounds that had never fully healed. Each sigh was a reminder of what she had been avoiding, what she had refused to face. But now, in the sanctuary, she felt a shift. She didn't need to carry this weight forever. She didn't need to be defined by her pain. With a deep breath, Elara let the sighs wash over her, feeling them resonate within her. And then, slowly, she released them, allowing the sorrow to move through her, to leave her. It wasn't easy, it wasn't instant, but with each sigh, she felt herself grow lighter. The grief didn't disappear, but it no longer controlled her. She could feel the sanctuary itself soften, as if the sighs had found peace, and so had she. The keeper watched in silence, her gaze unwavering as Elara released the sorrow that had bound her. When it was done, Elara opened her eyes and looked at the keeper. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. I think I can move on now." The keeper smiled, her eyes filled with quiet understanding. "You will, Elara. You have already begun. The past will always be a part of you, but it does not have to define you. You are free to move forward." With that, Elara turned and left the sanctuary of sighs, the weight of the grief she had carried for so long now a thing of the past. As she walked away, the sighs faded into the distance, leaving only the soft, steady rhythm of her own heart. Elara's journey had led her through a labyrinth of emotions, confronting the shadows of her past, the grief that had shaped her, and the mysteries of the dreamscape that had become her guide. Yet, as she moved beyond the sanctuary of sighs, the world before her began to change once more. The air was lighter now, as if the very atmosphere had shifted with her newfound sense of release. The path she walked was no longer dark or heavy with sorrow. It was bathed in a soft, golden light that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. The fog had lifted, revealing a vast, open sky above, filled with shimmering stars that flickered like whispers of forgotten dreams. In the distance, the faint glow of something ethereal beckoned her forward, a light so pure and radiant that it seemed to draw the very essence of her being. As she walked toward the light, the landscape around her began to take shape. The earth beneath her feet became firm, the grass swaying gently in a breeze she couldn't feel but could sense all the same. In the distance, towering mountains rose, their peaks dusted with snow, but the landscape felt foreign in a way that was almost comforting. The sky overhead darkened to a deep violet, the stars shimmering like diamonds. And yet, in the center of it all, there was that glow, a light that called to her, inviting her into its embrace. Elara's footsteps quickened as she approached the source of the light, and as she did, she realized that it was not just light but a presence. It was a feeling that washed over her, filling her with warmth and peace. The light surrounded her, flowing in every direction like the soft, comforting embrace of a long-lost friend. A soft voice filled the air, gentle as a whisper but powerful in its resonance. "You have come, Elara." She paused, looking around. There was no one in sight, but the presence of the voice seemed to emanate from the very light itself. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling as she took a step closer. "What is this place?" "I am Aurora," the voice replied, and with the mention of the name, the light grew brighter, enveloping Elara in its glow. "I am the keeper of the dawn, the first light that touches the world after the night. I am the promise of hope, of new beginnings, and of healing." Elara's heart skipped a beat as the words resonated within her. She had heard whispers of Aurora in the stories of the dreamscape, but she had never imagined she would meet this being of light, this embodiment of hope. The light around her seemed to pulse, as though it were alive, responding to her presence with warmth and comfort. "Why am I here?" Elara asked, her voice soft and uncertain. "What do I need to learn from you?" Aurora's voice was gentle yet filled with a quiet strength. "You have faced much in your journey, Elara. You have navigated the depths of your sorrow, released the burdens of the past, and allowed yourself to heal. Now, you are ready to embrace the light within you. The darkness no longer defines you, and the grief you once carried no longer has control over you. It is time for you to step into the light of your own truth, to awaken to the full potential that lies within you." The light around Elara intensified, and for a moment, she felt as though she were floating, her body weightless in the glow of Aurora's embrace. She closed her eyes, allowing the warmth to wash over her, and in that moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It was as though everything she had been searching for, every question, every doubt, had finally found its answer. "I'm ready," she whispered, the words leaving her lips like a promise, a declaration of surrender to the light. As she spoke, Aurora's presence grew more tangible, more defined. The light condensed around her, wrapping itself like a cocoon of warmth and love. It was not the light of the sun, sharp and glaring, but the soft, gentle light of the dawn, the first light of a new day, filled with endless possibilities. It was the light of renewal. The voice of Aurora filled her mind once more, its tone soothing and knowing. You have carried the weight of your past, Elara, but now it is time to let go of the shadows. The light you seek has always been within you. It has only waited for you to find it. Elara's chest tightened as she felt the truth of those words settle deep within her heart. She had spent so much time searching outside of herself for answers, for healing, for understanding. But the light, the peace, had always been within her, waiting to be embraced. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of release, of gratitude, of recognition. She could feel her heart expanding, opening to something new, something bright. She was no longer just Elara, the girl lost in the dreamscape, searching for meaning. She was someone who had found the strength to face her pain, to face her fears, and to heal. She was someone who had learned to embrace her own light. "I am ready," Elara repeated, this time with more conviction. "I am ready to step into the light." As the words left her mouth, the light of Aurora enveloped her completely. She could feel its warmth in every fiber of her being, its gentle caress soothing her soul. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt whole. She felt at peace. And in that moment, the sky above her began to shift, the stars fading as the first light of dawn spread across the horizon. The world was changing, and Elara was no longer afraid. She had faced the darkness, and now she was ready to embrace the dawn. Elara stood at the edge of the vast horizon, the golden glow of Aurora's embrace still warm around her. The dawn had broken, and with it, the last remnants of darkness had faded from the sky. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Elara felt complete, as though she had come full circle. The journey that had started with confusion, pain, and doubt had brought her to this moment, a moment of profound clarity. Before her stood a great door, its surface etched with symbols that seemed to shimmer and shift with every glance. The door was neither imposing nor welcoming, it was simply there, standing at the boundary between the known and the unknown. The air around it hummed with an energy Elara could feel deep within her soul. This was the final threshold, the last test of her journey. Beyond this door lay the ultimate truth, her truth. She stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. The door seemed to pulse in response, as though acknowledging her presence, waiting for her to take the final step. But even as she approached, a familiar feeling of uncertainty crept into her mind. The fear she thought she had left behind began to resurface, the fear of failure, the fear of facing her deepest wounds, the fear of the unknown that lay beyond the door. Elara paused, her hand hovering over the door's handle. The light around her flickered, as though in response to her hesitation. She could feel the weight of the moment, the immense significance of what was about to happen. This was it. This was the moment when everything she had learned, everything she had healed, would be tested. "You have come this far," a voice echoed in her mind. It was Aurora's voice, but it was more than that. It was the voice of all the wisdom and understanding Elara had gained through her journey. "You have faced your shadows, healed your heart, and embraced the light within you. But now, you must face the final challenge." Elara's breath hitched as the voice continued. "The door will only open when you are truly ready to walk into your own truth, to accept every part of who you are, your strengths, your flaws, your past, and your future. You must accept yourself fully, without fear." Elara closed her eyes, drawing in a deep breath. She could feel the pull of the door, the promise of what lay beyond it. But there was a part of her, an old part, that still held back, still feared what might be on the other side. What if she wasn't ready? What if, despite everything, she still wasn't enough? "Are you ready?" the voice asked again, this time softer, more patient. The question echoed in her mind, and as she stood there, she realized that the fear was not the enemy, it was a part of her. The fear was the last piece of the puzzle, the last barrier she had to dismantle. She had spent so long running from her fears, fighting against them, trying to bury them in the shadows. But now, she understood that fear was not something to be conquered or banished. It was something to be embraced. It was a part of her, and by accepting it, she would accept herself completely. With that realization, Elara reached for the door. Her hand, steady now, gripped the cool, smooth handle. For a moment, the world around her held its breath, and then, with a soft creak, the door swung open. Beyond the threshold lay a room bathed in a soft, radiant light. It was unlike any space she had ever seen. The walls were made of light itself, swirling and shifting in patterns that seemed to tell stories of ancient times. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the sound of a gentle breeze whispered through the room, as if the very atmosphere were alive. In the center of the room stood a mirror. It was tall and ornate, its frame made of silver and gold, intricately carved with symbols Elara didn't recognize. But as she approached, she knew instinctively that this was no ordinary mirror. It was a mirror of truth, a mirror that reflected not just the physical, but the essence of a person's soul. Elara stood before the mirror, her reflection gazing back at her. But it was not just her face that she saw, it was the entirety of her journey, the pain and the healing, the doubts and the triumphs. It was the face of someone who had walked through the fire of their own fears and had emerged stronger, more whole. It was the face of someone who had learned to embrace both the light and the shadows within themselves. As Elara looked into the mirror, she saw not just the person she had been, but the person she was becoming, the person she had always been meant to be. There was no judgment, no shame, no fear. There was only acceptance, understanding, and love. She had finally come to terms with all the parts of herself, the parts she had hidden away, the parts she had tried to forget, and the parts she had longed to embrace. A warm, comforting presence filled the room, and Elara felt a wave of peace wash over her. She knew that she had passed the final test. The door had opened not just to the room beyond, but to a new chapter of her life, a chapter filled with possibilities, with hope, and with the unwavering truth of who she was. And in that moment, she understood. The door had not just led her to the truth, it had led her to herself. Elara stood before the mirror, her heart full of a peace she had never known before. The light in the room seemed to pulse with the rhythm of her soul, as though the very fabric of the dreamscape was resonating with her inner transformation. She had journeyed far, through darkness and light, fear and hope, and now, standing in the presence of her true self, she felt a sense of completion, of wholeness, that was beyond words. But as she stood there, gazing into the mirror, a soft whisper broke through the stillness, as gentle as the wind that moved through the trees in the forest of forgotten songs. "It is time to wake, Elara." The voice was familiar, Aurora's, the voice of light and renewal. It was the voice that had guided her through the trials and the shadows, the voice that had reminded her time and again of her strength, of her light. Elara's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she didn't want to leave. The dreamscape, the peace, the clarity she had found, it all felt so real, so vivid, that she could hardly imagine returning to the waking world. But the voice was right. She had learned what she needed to learn. She had embraced the darkness, faced her fears, and allowed the light to shine within her. It was time to bring that light back into the world, to share it with those she loved, and to live fully, with all the wisdom she had gained. "Will I forget everything?" Elara asked softly, her voice filled with a touch of sadness. "Will the journey fade once I wake?" Aurora's voice was filled with warmth and understanding. "The dream may fade, but the lessons you have learned will stay with you. You will carry them in your heart, in every step you take. The light within you will always guide you, no matter where you are." Elara nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey she had undertaken. She had come so far, and now she was ready to awaken. The mirror shimmered before her, and in an instant, she felt herself being pulled gently away from the dreamscape. The warmth of Aurora's presence lingered, like the last rays of a sunset before the night fully set in. She felt the world around her begin to change, the light becoming softer, the air cooler, the sounds of nature fading into the background. Slowly, the dreamscape began to dissolve, and Elara felt herself drifting, like a leaf carried on the wind, back toward the waking world. And then, with a soft, almost imperceptible shift, Elara opened her eyes. At first, everything was a blur. The room around her was dim, the soft glow of dawn creeping through the curtains. She could hear the sound of birdsong, the rustle of leaves outside, and the soft rhythm of her own breath. Her body felt heavier, as though she had been floating in another world, but now she was grounded once more. She could feel the cool sheets beneath her, the familiar weight of her blanket, and the quiet stillness of the morning. For a moment, she simply lay there, absorbing the sensation of waking. The dream was fading, but the feeling of peace and light remained deep within her. The warmth of Aurora's presence was still there, nestled within her heart, a quiet reminder that she was never truly alone. She had learned to embrace both the light and the shadows within herself, and now she would carry that wisdom into the waking world. As she sat up in bed, Elara took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh morning air. The room was bathed in the soft glow of dawn, the first light of a new day. The world outside her window seemed brighter somehow, more vibrant, as though the very earth itself had been touched by the same light that had illuminated her journey. She knew that the road ahead would not always be easy. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when she would face the darkness again. But she also knew that she was no longer the same person who had entered the dreamscape. She had been transformed, not by the world around her, but by the light she had found within herself. And no matter what lay ahead, she was ready to face it. Elara stood up, her feet touching the cool floor, grounding her in the reality of the moment. She walked to the window and gazed out at the rising sun, the golden light spilling across the horizon. The world was awakening, and so was she. As the sun climbed higher, Elara felt a sense of renewal, a sense of purpose that filled her from the inside out. She had come through the darkness and emerged into the light. And now, she was ready to embrace whatever the world had to offer. She was ready to live fully, to love freely, and to walk in the light of her own truth. And so, as the dawn broke fully across the sky, Elara stepped forward into the new day, her heart full of hope, her spirit alive with the promise of all that was yet to come.